We're now approaching the Main Street station. If you are disembarking here, please remain seated until we come to a complete stop.
Shout from the mountaintops, a star is born. It's a summer for the mountain stars. A star is
born. This monorail offers express service to the Magic Kingdom.
Now, where's everybody else?
Oh, they're coming on the monorail.
But Fozzie, the monorail doesn't come through here.
It does now.
WDW Radio, your information station. Japan is unlike anywhere else in the world. And this week, I want to take you there. Not with a guidebook, but through the memories, moments, and magic we experienced together on our recent WDW Radio Adventures by Disney group trip. So I invite you to join me and some friends who are really more like family from our group as we reflect this week on our journey through Kyoto, Hiroshima, Takayama, Shirakawa-go, and Tokyo, and how this adventure changed us in ways we never expected. We'll share the beauty, the surprises, and the emotion of this remarkable experience and explore not just what makes Japan so special, but why Adventures by Disney makes it unforgettable. And if you missed out on this trip, don't worry, because stay tuned for the announcement of our next very special WDW Radio adventure. I promise you do not want to miss it. Hello, my friend, and welcome to WDW Radio, your guide to the Disney parks, movies, and experiences from around the world. I am Lou Mangello, and this is show number 830, and for more than 20 years, together we've shared our love of Disney through the podcast, my weekly live video on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, blog, community, events, and more. And whether you've been with us since the very beginning or this is your first episode, thank you for being here. Welcome home, and please join the community and conversation over at wdwradio.com/clubhouse. Be sure to stay tuned for our Disney Trivia Question of the Week for your chance to win a magical prize package that I brought back for you from Japan, and get a free copy of my 102 Things to Do at Walt Disney World at least once book when you join our free newsletter at wdwradio.com/newsletter. And if you need a keynote speaker or a coach to help grow your brand or business, visit loumangello.com to see how I can help. And if you are a creator or an entrepreneur, and if you're ready to build real momentum in your business and life, I invite you to please join me this October in Walt Disney World for my Momentum Weekend Workshop. Tickets are available at loumangello.com/momentum. It's 50 people, one room, 4 days. Space is limited, and this is your chance to lock in the lowest price. Let's also connect on social. I am at Lou Mangello on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And if you enjoy the show, and I hope that you do, please rate, review, and share it with a friend. It helps more than you know. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. Do not go to Japan. Do not go. Why? Because it will spoil you for anywhere else on the planet. From the culture to the cuisine, the cleanliness to the kindness, the taxis to the toilets, the quiet to the convenience stores. The convenience stores are actually very convenient. The vending machine to the etiquette. Japan is like no other place on the planet. From the quiet beauty of a bamboo forest to the neon pulse of Tokyo. From temples that share stories from the past to meals that are truly pieces of art. Japan isn't like any other destination. It really is a revelation. And I had the privilege of traveling there with Adventures by Disney and an incredible group of friends who are really more like family from the WDW Radio community. And what I thought would be an amazing, remarkable, memorable trip really did turn out to be so much more. So today, I want to share that journey with you, not as a day-by-day sort of breakdown of the itinerary, but really by sharing a series of unforgettable moments and meaningful memories and perspectives that may have even changed along the way. And so this is our Adventures by Disney Journey to Japan Roundtable. And trust me, after listening, you still might not be ready for just how special Japan really is. We're going to talk about all the places that we visited, the people that we met, the things that we learned, the food that we loved, and how this trip changed us. So whether Japan is on your bucket list or if you have traveled there before, whether you're thinking about an Adventures by Disney vacation or just love hearing stories about connection, culture, and a little bit of Disney magic, I invite you to pull up a chair in this very, very large round table that I've ascended to come along with us and help me by first welcoming my friends, my guests, my fellow adventurers, and really part of my extended family. First and foremost, not just because it's ladies first, but Becky Menken from Mouse Fan Travel, without whom this trip would not be possible.
And we got to go twice. So that's incredibly cool that we were able to do this adventure with two groups of family, and surprisingly got to do a whole bunch of things different this time.
Which is part of the beauty of Adventures by Disney that I'm sure we will talk about. And then again, in no particular order. Well, all right, I'll keep going ladies first. Lisa Donato Glassner, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me for what is sure to be a very interesting, exciting, and overwhelming conversation.
Kenneth Johnson. Usually when you're here, Kenneth, we are around a literal table talking about food, just as we were in Japan. Welcome back.
Thank you, Lou. And I'm sure we'll be talking about some food tonight.
We will absolutely be talking. We could do an entirely separate show about maybe we should, the top 10 things we ate in Japan. Frequent dining buddy, also, Jason, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm going to be assembling my Lou Mangello bento box as we talk.
Please do not put into ChatGPT or like Firefly, show me a picture of a Lou Mangello bento box, because I don't want to see what the output is going to look like. My friend Carlos Silva, is this the first time?
No.
I know we've done like live shows together.
Actually, it's the second time here. Second time. It's so good to be back.
It is good to see you, my friend. And I think first time on the show, but not just more than second Adventures by Disney, but second Adventures by Disney with us to Japan. Nicole and Sean, welcome.
Thanks for having us. Glad we can make it work.
Yeah, I think last time we were going to do a review, like it was either timing or email. We'll talk about how many Adventures by Disney is this that we've done together?
6.
Huh?
Wow. And you're not sick of me yet, so thank you very much.
We already have 2 more scheduled, so.
looking forward to seeing you on the next one.
Excuse me. And I said this is the trip of a lifetime, not just because it's Adventures by Disney, and not just because I get to go back to my favorite place on the planet, but this time, a lot of times when I travel, I'm traveling alone with my traveling buddy, Becky. But, my kids are getting older and starting to, forge their own paths in their own lives. But for this trip, I was able to bring my entire family. They've heard me talk about, just drone on about really Japan for years. So I want to welcome Deanna and Nicholas. That's your cue guy. Waving. Yeah, waving does not help. Yeah, they can't hear the wave. But that's
so glad to be here.
After 6 years of hearing gloating about this trip, I can finally be here to talk about it after being a part of it. So it's good to be here.
I agree.
Yeah, and to the point about everybody sort of doing their own thing. My daughter Marion can't be here. She is in New York on an internship. I told her to call the voicemail or send me an audio message with her review so I could add it to the show. But I really want to start before we get into the the heart of everything we did. I want to sort of step back. One, not just sort of introducing yourself, but really give me sort of one word to, if I tell you to describe your Adventures by Disney trip to Japan, where's the first word that comes to mind? And then why? Tell me what your why is. Why Japan? Why now? Why ABD? Why doing it with WDW Radio? Nicole and Sean, I'm very curious to know why you, and I'm grateful for the fact that you wanted to do it again. And maybe you guys start, since this is, Becky and I have done this, before, but you guys came when we did it the first time in 2019, and you said if you ever did it again, you guys wanted to come. I didn't believe you, but you clearly meant it what you said. So why Japan, and why Japan again?
For me,
Japan was always the country I wanted to see first. And then we did a Backstage Magic ABD, and we really enjoyed it. And we said if they ever did one in Japan, we would totally go. So we did it, and then I loved it, and Nikki loved it just as much as I did. Japan for me, it's like, I grew up in anime, playing video games, and so there's just a lot about their culture that I really like. But I love the peace when I go to that country. It's the tranquility of it. It's just, there's just so much there that just isn't here back home.
It's why I'm sure, as I was saying, that Japan spoils you for other places. I'm sure you agree it really does.
Yeah, and even when we got back from that trip, well, first we didn't want to leave from that first trip, and we said if the opportunity came up again and we could go, then we would definitely go. And so we were extremely excited when the second trip came to fruition and that the timing worked out. And of course, we jumped at the chance to go again, and same kind of sentiment that we wish we wouldn't have to leave and would like to go back. And it was pretty awesome to be there again.
And Lisa and Jason and Kenneth, we get together often. We're all local and get together usually over food. You've heard me talk and, I'm sure drone on about Japan, almost to the point of like begging you guys to come on this trip because, one, I wanted you to share it with me, but I wanted you to have that same experience. For each of you, what were your thoughts? What's that single word? And, again, why, other than me continuing to ask you to come, why Japan, why now, and why this trip?
Well, for me,
I think for me, the one word would be homecoming. I have a long history with that place, with this place. And, I took the language in college and law school and lived and worked there for a period of time. And, a couple of decades kind of got away from me while I waited to go back. And, I don't know how much convincing I needed from you, to go on this extraordinary adventure. But, the opportunity to go back to this place that, I'll say now, and we've said already, and I'm sure we'll just continue to say again and again, where the nature of the place and the people and the philosophy behind which they live their lives, they just get it more than any place I've ever been in my life. And the opportunity to return to that place, at this time in my life and with a group of, my closest friends in the world was an opportunity that, needless to say, I couldn't turn down.
Kenneth, Jason?
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, if I had to boil the trip down to one word, it would be people. And I think it's, not only, the idea, I knew that I'd be going on a trip with Disney people, and Disney people have a certain culture that makes fun a lot more likely and possible. For example, Ralph, our guide, he's the quintessential Disney entertainment personality, and only a bus full of Disney people would get half the jokes that he made, and it was just so much fun. But even more possibly than the people we were on the trip with, which made it fun, were the people of Japan, and just the way every person who works in every store, train station, or, public works is like a Disney cast member in a way. They're just so overwhelmingly courteous and kind and welcoming and just bending over backwards to please you. I think for me, the secret to this trip being so wonderful was just the people, and not to mention the chance to get to connect with my oldest son, who's 20 and, like you said, forging his own way and more independent. So yeah, it was definitely people.
I love that answer because I've always, and I'm sure you've heard me say it, was like, if Disney ran a country, it would be Japan, just because of the way the people are all the time. And yeah, forgive me for neglecting to say that you brought your son, Jason, you brought your wife, Carlos, you brought your wife. So this was, I know that this was a special trip for all of us for different reasons. Jason?
Everything you guys said already, but I would say for me, it's a wonder would be probably the word going into the trip. It's a place I wanted to visit since I was a kid. that's only grown in intensity as I've learned more about the culture and traditions, the contrast, and the contrast between tradition and heritage and technology and the organization of things, but also the sort of chaos that seems to be, in the cities and so forth. But I think in terms of coming out of it, I would go to Kenneth's answer. The people, that would be the reason I'd go back, because I don't think I was fully prepared for what I experienced in terms of the people of Japan. And it's not, I mean, Kenneth's right. It's like Disney runs every company, every service company we interacted with. But also the man on the street. I mean, kids and strangers, and that would come up and help us, even when we didn't need it. We just looked like we needed it. Probably did need it, actually. But even the last conversation I had with somebody in line at the airport, like they were just curious about our experience and so hospitable still as we're leaving the country and kind of making sure we wanted to come back again. I was just enamored with the people of Japan.
I agree with you. We said this multiple times on the trip, and I'm sure as we continue to talk, this is going to come up over and over again. But, Japan proves it can be done. Like, people can be kind and courteous and respectful and in service to one another for no other reason than it's just the right thing to do, and it makes a huge difference.
Well,
what about for you?
I think that before getting to Japan was in the top of my list and my wife's list to travel. But the main reason for us, I think, and the main word for us before the trip was friends, because we wanted to be with you guys in adventure, and before even knowing where, it was already great to be to be with you. Was an amazing start, and destination was amazing. And after the trip, I think that the word that came for me is hope, because yes, after all we experienced, I still have hope that civility and to be gentle and to be kind is something that works so fine, and we saw that happen every single moment during the trip with the people there. Yeah, the people was the secret of the trip.
I love that there's a consistency in a lot of our answers. Deanna and Nicholas. Nicholas, I know, like, since you've been a little kid, this has been your dream trip of a lifetime. I promised it to you many years ago before you even graduated middle school. But for you and Deanna, what sort of give me one word to describe the overall experience?
So going into this trip, like, the word would have just been like nerd, because that was the reason I wanted to go to trip for so long, was like all the stuff I watched growing up, all the things I still love now, like there are Pokemon centers, Godzilla, yada yada yada. Like, that was like the thing I was just on. But I come out of it, and the word that I described is kindness. Everyone there, the people on the trip, the people just in the country themselves, it is a culture of kindness, a culture of service, and a culture of hospitality. Everyone is in service of one another and just wants to help and learn more and connect. And that's something that I believe we as a country and we as people need to take note of and implement into our lives as a whole. So I think that's probably the word I came back with that sat with me over these past few weeks.
I'm so proud of you, Nicholas. But
I agree.
And to be clear, like, that's not, when we talk about the people and the culture and the kindness, we're not talking about sort of the Disney-fied version that was in our quote-unquote Adventures by Disney bubble. We're talking about everybody that we dealt with, from the moment that you land to the moment that you get off the airplane. Deanna?
Yes, kindness, definitely. The people, for sure. And I think that the other thing, too, is, like, I was so humbled by it, because you really do look at things differently now. At least I do. You have to carry your trash with you. I mean, who does that? I got off the plane from Tokyo to New York, and the difference was like I was in a time warp, because these people were so amazing in Japan, and the city was so clean. So I would have to say that I'm definitely humbled by the experience. And now that after Luke came home from his first trip, I completely understand why he wants to move there if he could.
Becky, this, like you said, this is our second Adventures by Disney. It's been our third opportunity to visit the country together. Have that first experience, which we love being able to watch from the people that get to come on these trips with us, but then to go back and do it again and be reminded of all the things and reinforced of all the things that we felt the first time. What about for you?
That's the thing. Everyone's kind of said people and kindness, and those are the first two words that came to mind. But I'm also going to throw in harmony, because to me, and it really stood out this time. It didn't stand out the first time, but the balance between their tradition of Kyoto and the modern technology of Tokyo, the balance between the two, it really shines. Japan means so much to so many people, and the culture is what draws us in. But then you're kind of engulfed by the food and the people and the kindness and the ritual and the fact that they do so much things better than we do, from little carts in the buffet all the way down to, as Deanna mentioned, carrying your own trash, because like you say many times, everything you walk into looks like it was built yesterday, because it is just so pristine, and they have so much pride and awareness of their culture and of the things around them. I fell in love all over again. And again, the first time we went, it was just, this whole hit of what Japan's all about. The second time, it really stood out. All of those little nuances and differences that we're talking about, that everyone's mentioned, it really hit home. And then, of course, when you land in the U.S., you immediately go, wait a minute, I'm not in Japan anymore.
Yeah. I'm not in Kansas anymore.
It's a smack in the face, right?
Yeah.
And I owe you all an apology, because you probably, especially my family who was stuck with me the whole time, for how many times I'm like, look how clean it is. You could eat off the ground. It looks like it was built yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just talking about Tokyo Disneyland. We're talking about the train stations, the convenience stores, the restrooms. Like, yes, we could do an entire show about the leveling up of
Asia.
Yeah.
Right. Not consistent across Asia, but how we all want to come home, and I just need to set up an affiliate link for Japanese toilets for Amazon, because we all want one. Mm-hmm. But let's just quickly talk, just very briefly, and just sort of speak up or raise your hand if you'd like to share your thought, because I think half the fun is getting there. Right? It's just like planning for a Disney trip. Part of the fun is the preparation, and going someplace like Japan is exciting. I think for some folks, it's nerve-wracking. It might be the first time you've traveled overseas. Maybe you're traveling alone. You don't know the language. You can't read the words that are on signage. Talk to me a little bit about either expectations going in. What were your thoughts? What were your maybe looking most forward to, or any of the nerves or questions that you had before going? And then maybe how did you prepare for the trip mentally, emotionally, financially, culturally? Were you watching videos, downloading Duolingo, which I know a lot of you were like, look at my streak. Podcast, anime. Nicholas watched every Godzilla movie over and over again. Were you watching Miyazaki movies or Kurosawa movies? In Becky's case, were you watching Kill Bill over and over again? Even things like, how did you pack? Did you sort of go in with any preconceived notions, feels, or ideas about traveling on this trip and or traveling with Adventures by Disney?
There was a lot of preparation in our side, particularly for the first stop for Kyoto, and then I left kind of easy for the rest, because I knew I was going to be with you guys, and I knew that we were going to be with Adventure by Disney. But one thing that struck me is that it was a little. There was a lot of preparation. From the moment we got to Kyoto, everything was so easy. It's so easy that I start to forget all the things, all the notes, all the walking schedules that I had with me, and said, go with the flow, enjoy, because the city was so easy. So there was a lot of. It's always good to be prepared before. But when we got there, we realized that it's so easy with them.
And that's really the beauty of Adventures by Disney is once you get there, or even before you get there, I mean, it's sort of, I think, the goal, but I think once you get there, there's such a sense of a comfort level and knowing that everything is taken care of for you. You don't have to worry about where you're going, how you're going to get there, communication, anything like that. And it takes a lot of that fear and frustration and burden off you from the moment, I mean, even the moment that you land and you're met at the airport with an Adventures by Disney guide. And then, it's really sort of hands off as much as you want or will allow them to do. Kenneth?
Yeah, I'll echo what Carlos said for sure. I was, led to expect that, all of my friends that travel a lot told me, going to Western Europe or even Eastern Europe or other places, Latin America, those are broadening experiences. But when you set foot in Japan, you will feel like you are in the most foreign place you've ever been. That was the expectation that I had. And so I tried to prepare furiously. I asked Lisa, tell me a good book to read on Japanese culture. And I read The Chrysanthemum and the Sword. It's fantastic. But like Carlos said, when I stepped off the plane, I just realized I don't have to do anything. They're going to have it all worked out for me. And a lot of people would look at that and say, well, I don't really want a Disney packaged experience. I want to get out and really experience the country on my own and have things happen by chance and, have these little chance encounters. But I'm going to tell you, having it all worked out for you the way Disney does, it gives you the chance mentally to focus on the people and the culture that you're experiencing and not have to be preoccupied with the logistics and figuring out the trains and, how to get here or how to get there or, am I going to do this or that? And it really did make a huge difference in how much I was able to absorb in just 10 days.
Yeah, I think and to your point, I think Disney does an amazing job of curating the experiences that you're going to want to do, right? You want to make sure you hit all of the highlights, but also in a way that is going to be most effective and efficient for you, especially some places that can be very crowded, very, very busy, where you're not standing on line. Sometimes you're even able to skip lines in order to get in, but also giving and affording you time on your own if you want it to do a little exploring. I think we all did that a little bit on our own. Sometimes that's where some of the best experiences happen, almost by chance or by Google searches. But they can also help you along the way too, so you don't feel like I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go, and then feeling a little lost or overwhelmed, especially in a country where you're not familiar not just with the spoken language, but with the written language, which before you go to Japan, they say if you want to be fluent in Japan, you need to memorize 3,000 characters just to sort of have a good basis. So that's it is a little intimidating. Anybody else, anything else you also want to share about the anticipation or preparation?
I'll tag in a little bit about not necessarily the ABD side, because again, once you get to the trip, everything's taken care of for you. You can sit back, relax, go wander off, and they'll figure out everything. More so, some of the more curated experiences that are very popular in Japan, everything is based, I know for me, I really wanted to go to the Nintendo Museum. This is just one of the various things you can book out in advance. And for most of them, if not all of them, you have to either enter a lottery system months in advance for the chance of getting a reservation, or register months in advance at midnight, or it's going to sell out. I had to register 3 months in advance for a lottery that I didn't even know if we were going to be able to go. And we just hope for the best. But that was one thing I noticed a lot about a lot of experiences there, especially a little bit more popular ones. Everything is so popular, but it's dealt with in such a nice way in terms of registering so far in advance that you're able to circumvent a lot of the headaches that you face when it comes to coming to things in the States, like going to Disney World and having to navigate the 87 systems for FastPass 2B or whatever it is. it's a very organized, unique, but also very daunting system that you have to face when trying to look for these experiences.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear everyone's opinion, but I felt like all the planning that Disney did actually resulted.
Yeah, I'll tag on to that as well.
Hold on. Wait. I know Lisa can't hear. For some reason, Lisa can't hear Kenneth. Lisa, I'll tag you in as soon as Kenneth is done. I'll translate for Kenneth for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd love to hear everyone's opinion on this, but I would argue that the way Disney did this trip, it actually resulted in more unique and unexpected experiences than if we had just done it by chance. When you think about things like, having lunch in that temple with the family and all of those little experiences like that just you never would have expected or had on your own if you were just taking the trip haphazard or even planning it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Becky, then Lisa?
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to add on is that is the goal of ABD. Their process is so amazing. Months, weeks, years in advance, they go in and scout out. They have trip managers that scout out the destinations and find those activities and those things and those places you're staying and the places that you eat and the things that you do. Going through guidebooks and figuring out what the most important popular things are so that you know that you're going to hit all of those things. But they spend so much time doing just what you mentioned, Kenneth, the off the grid things, the experiences that you would never have, the stories that are going to be told, because of course Disney's a storytelling company. They want to tell the story of the culture, of the destination, of the people. So they find these things that we can do and experience, like that lunch in the temple that is off the grid, that is not something that everybody goes to do, so that you're guaranteed the chance to see the things that you know is on your list, but then you do the things that are surprising. And every single itinerary I've ever done has one of those surprising things that you never would have done on your own, but you walk away with that being one of your best memories. And this is across the board, every ABD itinerary.
Yeah, I'll tag on to all the comments to date, Nick's especially, and and just say, obviously one of the reasons that you do an ABD is like for the mindlessness isn't a good word, but the ability to hop on the trip, having done, as much or as little research as you would like to have done on the side, and knowing that they've curated these, really ticking the boxes on all the things that you should see, as well as curating some incredibly unique experiences that I'm sure we'll talk about. So, in planning for an ABD, if you're looking at the ABD itinerary, what I would recommend doing is focusing on the spots in the itinerary where they note that you are going to have open time for dinner, open time to stroll, open time to do things on your own, and then decide sort of what your top priorities are, or what sorts of things you'd like to be exploring during that downtime. And like Nick says, a lot of times those things are going to need to be booked, months in advance, or you're going to need to enter some lottery or do something else in advance to secure yourself a spot. So really in the time leading up to the ABD, focusing on that open time and where you're going to be and how you'd like to spend that extra time, and as far as how I prepared for the trip and how I sort of mentally prepared for the trip, I kind of returned to the language and enjoyed that a lot. I watched every Studio Ghibli movie I could get my hands on and 100 other things. But I think the thing I was most curious about was how much the country would have changed in the years since I've seen it last, because having been there, around 2000 last, and obviously the explosion in interest in Japan and Japanese tourism and visitors from outside the country coming in, I was very curious to see how the country as a whole would have changed in light of that, because of how sort of isolated and homogenous they've been in the past. And I think one of the things that impressed me the most on this trip was like the extent to which they have mastered the art of boundary drawing, in that they are, welcoming, in places like Shirakawa-go, which we'll talk about, which are very isolated places in the world with very sort of quiet, small communities. I would walk around and wonder how they didn't resent our presence in their lives. And you walk around and you kind of start to see the healthy boundary drawing that they make. Like, they welcome you in, but, you know, this road is closed to traffic, or this parking lot is completely closed to the outside world after 5 p.m. or, you know, a long list of things that I think can be a lesson for all of us in, you know, how they've managed to balance maintaining their own identity and their own way of life, you know, while also being welcoming to so much of the world that has become curious about being there and experiencing them.
Yeah, so I want to get into the actual itinerary. And again, I don't want to break this down as a day-by-day, experience-by-experience thing, but and Nicole and Sean, I absolutely want to hear from you, especially in this part, because when Becky and I did this Adventures by Disney 6 years ago, I said at the end of the very first day, I said it to you, Becky, I said it to probably everybody else, I said, I could go home right now and feel like I got enough out of this trip, because the first place that you go is Kyoto, and we're there for about 3 days or so. And Kyoto for me has always been the place that I have enjoyed most, because I think it's that perfect balance, right? It was the imperial capital for 1,000 years and is very much rooted. And I love the history and the culture. And we got to see, you know, temples and shrines and spiritual sites like the Golden Pavilion and the Fushimi Inari. I'm sure you've seen the pictures of the thousands of red torii gates. One of my favorite aspects of this Adventures by Disney of Kyoto, of this entire trip, is you go through the Arashiyama bamboo grove with a guide pulling our 2-person rickshaws in this serene, cinematic, unforgettable, almost unbelievable place. But we also had other experiences, including a dinner with a traditional Japanese maiko. So it's a sort of a geisha in training in Kyoto, and this intimate traditional meal and cultural performance. We did taiko drumming. We went to a sumo wrestling experience. We strolled the streets of Gion and those beautiful old, you know, traditional wooden tea houses. And I think for me, Kyoto makes me feel Japan. I think it's the soul and the spirituality and the sense of place. Sean and Nicole, tell me about your first day, your first, you know, was that feeling the same? We had a somewhat parallel experience, but slightly different than the first time. And then for all of you, for any of you, how did the experiences in Kyoto, right, like the rickshaw tour, like the maiko dinner, help to either introduce you to or help deepen your understanding of Japanese culture? And what was maybe your favorite or most memorable or impactful part of the trip? Sean and Nicole, you guys go first.
Yeah, 100% kind of echo you in that Kyoto was definitely one of our favorites, favorite spots last time. And we were incredibly excited that we were going to get to do the bamboo forest adventure part again, because that was a highlight for sure. And, you know, that was last time the thing we did like on the first day, and same like you know, we're excited to be able to do that again. And yeah, we could be done with the trip, and it just keeps going up and up from there. So yeah, Kyoto is definitely a highlight for sure for experience, getting your feet wet into Japan for the first time and going back. We had the same sentiment. Being able to experience that bamboo forest was incredible, to be able to see that again, and all of the different spots in Kyoto that we were able to visit. And, you know, when you go the first time, and I'm sure most of the folks that went for the first time, it's just so overwhelming with everything that is, you're trying to take in and absorb. And so that's also one of the reasons we were excited to get to go back, even to some of the places that we had visited before, because then we could even absorb more of what was going on, because we knew, you know, that it was amazing and kind of got that part out of the way. Yeah, Sean?
Yeah, for me, Kyoto, that's got to be one of my favorite places. I mean, the first time I was there, you can just feel it in the air. It's like that spirituality of it. I don't know. It's like I said, the peace and tranquility of that country. And I like it because it's a nice balance of not being the big city, but it's just urban enough. And especially going through the area of the rickshaw ride, riding through some of those neighborhoods and going by the shops and all the vendors along the way. It's just like, I just wanted to stop and sample everything they had to eat,
We did. We for the most part, we did.
Yeah. But yeah. And all these homes, I'm like, I just want to live here right now.
Right.
In some of those neighborhoods, it's just so peaceful.
Yeah, it is. I think that's why I love Kyoto, because it is that incredible balance of tradition and modernity without sort of large skyscrapers and neon. And for me, this was the first time and place that I noticed, and I noticed it again here. Our rickshaw drivers, pullers, are incredible. Not just because they're basically running a marathon in like moccasins uphill, 20 miles a day, pulling a rickshaw full of people, but we all seem to come off with the same thing. They're not just guides, but they all have such this pure love and joy and pride in not just what they do, but in the place that they live and in their country and in the people. And it really is, I really felt it was reflected, especially this year. Deanna, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. That's exactly what I was going to say. Our rickshaw driver, I guess that's what you call it, a driver, was only 23 years old. And I just couldn't believe, number one, that he absolutely loves what he does every single day. He was so happy to talk to us and tell us about, his experiences and why he does it, and the athleticism that he has, like being a marathoner, but having to pull, my weight and your weight up hills and down hills and, day in and day out. And I think he said he does about 18 miles a day. And it was just incredible to me. And he was so happy for us, to ask his story. And I loved that. I loved learning about it. I loved speaking to him. I wanted him to come and hang out with us because I wanted to learn more about what he did in his life. And it was just amazing to me about, all about what he did. I loved it. I loved the bamboo forest. It was so amazing and breathtaking. That was one thing, that was on my bucket list, to get a picture of us in there. And it fulfilled everything on my bucket list with my kids, with you, with all of you there. It was simply I could have gone home. You're absolutely right after the first day.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other sort of reflections on Kyoto?
One thing I was thinking about while everyone was talking about that first day is I actually said that very thing. I don't know if I said it to you, Becky, or who I said it to, but I said at the end of that day, I feel like I could go home now, and it would have been worth far more than I paid and all the travel to get here. But when we're talking about out-of-the-way experiences, this is just sort of, that first day showed us how the trip was going to be. It sort of set the tone for that. We're on a big tour bus, and we're going to dinner on this big tour bus, and we park in this huge parking lot with other tour buses. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, this is going to be a very touristy experience, because all the other buses are there, and here we are, we're piling on this big tour bus. We get off this bus and we walk through this, part of Kyoto that's basically closing down. All the shops are beginning to close. And then we walk into this alley. It doesn't look like anything. We walk into this little alley and we wind through these corridors. We pop out onto this Japanese garden that's more beautiful than anything I've ever seen. And we're in this restaurant, entrance that I would have never found in a million years if I had been planning this trip, or if I would have never stumbled on that. Mm-hmm. And then we go and have this amazing experience with a geisha in training that we got to actually speak to and ask questions of. And understand her story and how she became what she became and what motivated her to do it. And all of those things are just, that day just set the tone for the kind of special experiences we were going to have the entire 10 days, I felt like.
Kenneth, what about the bus drivers? Like how they parked the buses in those teeny tiny spots.
That was
and
crazy
like
too.
every single time, like it was perfection.
I got to say this, though. Just be prepared when you show your friends and family any pictures of especially video of the rickshaw experience. Be prepared for feeling very bad about yourself because so far that's the result. That's the impact it has. I can't believe you made this person do this. I can't believe you made this person. Is he going uphill? Is he running uphill? Yes, but he likes it. He likes it.
And you can't tip him. You can't.
There's no tipping. They're like, what do you mean you didn't tip him? Are you kidding? Disney tipped him.
The guy was a professional at iPhone photos. That's what I couldn't believe. He knew all the filters on my iPhone better than I did, and he took these amazing photos. And there's nothing you can do to reward the guy for all this extra effort.
It was so cool.
People, for an hour.
I should have skipped breakfast. That's what I was thinking the whole time.
The pictures we walked away with from those guys, I think that they know phone cameras better than any of us all put together because they just took the phones and did these pictures and said, stand there, do this, look at that, do that. And then when you got back and you looked, and it was just amazing, the memories that you had in your hand.
And that's true. And that's actually, for me, was one of the first magic moments of the trip, because when the guide was carrying us there, when he showed the first picture that he took of us, it was amazing. It was a beautiful picture, and it was starting good.
Yeah, and I think that, again, I keep going back to why I love the Kyoto part of the trip is, I think it's this. I love the fact that we start in Kyoto and end in Tokyo as opposed to the opposite way, right? Because you are given that truly authentic cultural experience and immersion. Even things like going to the sumo wrestling experience and the taiko drumming. I have a way greater appreciation for the Matsuritsu taiko drummers in Epcot's Japan Pavilion, because we see just how hard and beautiful it really is. And that sense of tradition and so much, I think, that we glean from those first couple of days in Kyoto. We did things like we learned how to make mochi and sweets, and we went to little museums. We did the temple tours. We went to Miyajima. We get to see so many of these places that maybe we have seen in pictures or videos, but I think we all can attest to, as beautiful as and the pictures and videos are, I always felt that nothing could accurately convey just what these experiences really are like. And before we leave Kyoto, was there anything in those first couple of days other than the bamboo forest that really sticks out to you in your mind's eye?
I think you guys put it best when you said, like, Kyoto was quintessential Japan in terms of the best introduction to the culture, the people. Just to add on back to that bamboo forest, like, when you look at those photos, they're like, you're making those guys pull you, but like, they love to do that. That they're there because they want to do it, and it's what they love to do every day. Every person there had been doing it for like 13 years, 6 years. One of the guys said like 20 years, I think. They just love it so much. And I think Kyoto, every experience encapsulate that, just everyone there loves what they do.
Yeah, and part of the, sort of call it the Kyoto section of our adventure was taking the Shinkansen train, which is the bullet train that you've seen, but going to Hiroshima, which is, it's, I think Hiroshima is an important and interesting part of the trip, because on one hand, Hiroshima is this, you hear Hiroshima, you think of the history, but it's still this vibrant city after being built, but obviously holds a very special place for remembrance. And we do go to the Peace Memorial Park and to the museum. And it is a very powerful, very emotional, deeply moving, and I think very sobering look at the impact of the atomic bomb and the short and the long-term effect it has had on that area and its people. When you stand near that, the dome, I think there's a lot of very quiet, reflective moments. We also, there was a sort of symbolic moment that we had with the origami cranes that they gave us, connected to that sort of global call for peace that the stop entails. And so just share your own thoughts about the Kyoto stop, because I think it's important to have this historical perspective and a little bit of almost emotional grounding between, the cultural immersion of Kyoto that we have at the beginning, and then we're going to get to sort of that rural charm of Takayama that happens on the opposite side of it. And a lot of I was involved in, and I overheard, there was a lot of very thoughtful and meaningful conversations about, remembrance and resilience and peace and things like that. And I think that there's a lot of emotion that was brought into this. Anybody want to share your thoughts about the stop in Hiroshima?
Yeah. I mean, talk about taking the rickshaw feeling of expecting to be in a situation where you should be feeling resentment from everyone around you, and relocate that and multiply it by 1,000 or 10,000, 1,000,000. To be able to walk around Hiroshima with that guide and learn from them and hear from them about, their experiences of that time, and for them to be able to speak to us without resentment, without, cultural resentment, without the historical resentment of everything that comes with everything that we're learning and seeing, is just so extraordinary to me, and such a powerful statement about who the Japanese people are as a whole, to be able to walk around that place. And they explain to you there, Nagasaki also, obviously has, similar, tributes and similar memorials. Nagasaki's museum is, if you can believe it, perhaps even more jarring, than the one at Hiroshima. But what Hiroshima has done, and they speak to this very openly, is, the buildings that were bombed out, the buildings that were damaged, the visual, the large visuals of what happened, unlike Nagasaki, Hiroshima has chosen to leave those standing, as a memorial and as a memory. And it's not done with resentment or anger or, the anger of not repeating history or learning who to trust, or so many other spins that could be taken on that. But it's instead just taken as, a lesson for humanity, and hoping that, everyone who visits that place and everybody who sees that memorial and walks through that museum and sees the truth of what happened can take home to their friends and family and in their own heart, like the determination that it never happen again. And to me, that's such a powerful thing. And to be able to walk around that place and not feel resentment and just feel like this, dedication to teaching humanity how to do better, is just such a powerful experience for me.
And as we keep saying, it seems like what Japan has continued to try and do. We're there's lessons to take away from history, and we're trying to teach you every single day just how to continue to
adding on that,
be better.
actually, for me, the most powerful experience by Hiroshima was Tadashi was our guide, and even yesterday I was taking a look to the photos, and I took a picture with him, and I felt again, and what was amazing was the serenity, how gentle he was to go through everything, including some of the things that were heavier or were difficult. So for the local guy, Tadashi was something special in during that day too. You have to add that.
Yeah, and we'll talk after we sort of go day by day. We'll talk about our Adventures by Disney guides. But Becky, talk about the importance and the integration of the local guides as well, which is one of the things that I love about Adventures by Disney. Not only are we given on a trip like this to Adventures by Disney guides who are with us literally and figuratively every step of the way, but many times along our journey, we will have local guides to take us either to a specific city, a different location, a certain stop along the way. Talk about the integration and the importance of the local guides.
Yeah, it's really important to the storytelling because, obviously what they try to do in the international locations is have one American ABD guide and like we had Tomomi. So one of the local or Japanese speaking guides. So you do see that in many of the international destinations. But when you get to these little pockets within the destination that have a huge story to tell and lots of history, they bring in a true expert in the location. So we had this one in Hiroshima, and it was they do this almost on every single destination that has a more in-depth story to tell. So we're really getting those the frontline stories, the frontline information. I think that how they do it is so important when you think about the cost difference between an ABD and some other tours that you might see. And I think one of you had also referenced how, the buses pull up and you think you're just going to be in this massive, you're going to get off the bus and you're going to take a picture and getting back on the bus. That's why we pay a little more for ABD, because we do get those types of experiences and more immersive stories with people who can really tell you the information rather than just reading it from a guidebook.
Yeah, and one of the other things I thought of, and it's funny because we think back, and unless we're sort of going through our photos chronologically, sometimes it gets jumbled. One of the things, Hiroshima obviously very, very impactful, but if I have my days correct, this is also the day that we take the boat over to Miyajima Island, right? The island of the gods. Yes. Really, I think one of the most scenic spots in all of Japan. And I'm sure we've all shared a lot of the same.
All food, Lou.
There was also a torii gate
and food.
There was a torii gate and some temples and things like that. But we, this is one of the opportunities that we had to go off on our own. And there was, it's a very small island, and there's just, a single street with some cross streets of food stalls and restaurants and vendors that gives you that sense of exploration, but knowing you can't get too lost, right? You're on a small island. There's deer everywhere. Little deers are revered and sacred animals there, just sort of wandering around everywhere there. Anybody want to share any thoughts or reflections on your time on Miyajima Island, whether it's something that you found either from a visual standpoint, going to get the temple tour, or, in your food exploration that I think a lot of us went on. We couldn't eat fast enough because we were trying just to quickly get down the street to the next spot.
I'll start with talking a little bit about the island. I think the island was the perfect introduction to Hiroshima in terms of getting us acclimated, learning a little bit more about the history, and then eventually leaning towards the Peace Park. I think the temple, again, Tadashi, our guide, was fantastic in terms of explaining the history that goes behind the temple, the torii gate, having a little bit of time to wander around the temple and get a lot of food in the little streets that they had there. Really good lemon sours, really good street food. Just overall, the Miyajima Island was the perfect experience to kind of start our Hiroshima journey, which eventually led us towards the Peace Park and the other more impactful parts of the island.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Nicholas. And for me, the placement of that whole day, and I would not say this was a fun day necessarily, although the Iwo Jima, there was some fun eating on that island. But that day wasn't really about fun. It was more, I don't know what the right word to describe it is, but I'll tell you what it did for me. It sort of put the Japanese people in context for me as an American. And I think a lot of us that go on this trip, I think everybody is an American. Carlos, you're a naturalized American. We count you as one. But I think for all of us, it's almost impossible not to view the Japanese people through the lens of World War II, because we grew up with a history of Japan that was colored by that, and all of the culture and films, American films about World War II, are just still very powerful in our culture. And what that day did for me is sort of put the whole Japanese people in context. And it started to make me wonder, because we had already some exposure to how kind and welcoming and open that their society is. And it was just wonderful. And then we see this, and I'm beginning to think, and I think I even asked one of our guides, how did Japan move from the enemy we knew in World War II to this culture that welcomes us today, like Lisa's saying, with no resentment, and such kindness and such consideration for one another. How did that happen? Was it a change in them, or has it been a change in us, or what has happened? And it put the whole trip sort of in context. And although I did not consider that day particularly fun, it's not the word I would use to describe it. What it did was make the trip a lot more authentic for me, and it made the trip a lot more real. And I don't know what other words to describe it, but I'll open it to see if anybody else had the same experience.
Yeah, I think this.
I'll just add,
Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
oh, sorry. I just want to add on really quickly. When you're trying to find a word to kind of talk about that day, I was kind of thinking about it as we were talking. I think like educating and enlightening are two that really come to mind, because it really was about putting the Japanese in context and better understanding them as a people and how they kind of progressed after such a major event like World War II. So I think that's kind of the word that puts the nail on the head for me.
Yeah, and as I think back, and as I'm quickly looking over some of the photos again, I'm trying to get the chronology in my mind. This was such a rich tapestry of different experiences that touched me in different ways when you think about Kyoto, right? You're going to the shrines, you're seeing the torii gates. We did a fun bento box making class in our hotel. We saw beautiful cemeteries, the respect for, there's a beauty to the cemeteries that are there. And then there's also this stark contrast. We go to you go to Hiroshima, you go to Miyajima Island, we go to the taiko drumming, and then for those of us that wanted to do the nighttime optional bus trip, we went to Dotonbori in Osaka, a very opposite side of the coin, right? It's a little bit more, it's sort of the brighter, more modern side of Kyoto, but this is that sort of famous street with just nothing but retail and dining establishments. And really, this is where the nighttime food scene, I think, really is one of my favorite food stops along the way, because it's not about having a sit-down long meal. It's about exploring your way and eating your way up and down these streets and being able to try, sometimes more than once, melon pan bread, I'm looking at you. Takoyaki, I'm looking at you. Gyoza, I'm also looking at you. We had such a good time in our individual and little groups walking up and down the streets of Osaka. For those of you that did it, what was your feeling about that place? Its comparison and contrast to the day, favorite things that you tried, or just the sort of the dichotomy between the historical serene aspects of Kyoto and what, the nightlife scene of Dotonbori at night.
Well, I know that was one of our favorites from the last time as well. Getting that melon pan with the ice cream inside. I was so looking forward to that. And I was telling everybody on the bus, you have to get this, or as we were walking by and Tomomi was explaining the some different highlights. We just said, yeah, you have to try that. And I don't think people really believed us. And then it was so fun to see when somebody would stand in line and then they would try that for the first time, their reaction and, oh my gosh, this is so good. And so that was pretty exciting, because it was definitely something that we enjoyed, and it was glad to share that same enjoyment with other folks as well.
Yeah, I like that too. 'Cause we tried a bunch of different things we hadn't tried before, and just bragging up to everybody how good the stuff was we had, and to watch their reactions. And with Marty and Kelly, just watching Kelly's reaction after she ate the melon pan, and she's like, "This is the best thing ever." We're like, "Yeah, we told you."
Well, there's a couple of things that play there, right? I think one, even if you're not necessarily an adventurous eater, you're willing to become a little bit more adventurous, especially if you're with other people and with other people who have been there. And to that point, and I loved watching you guys who have been there before, because I think we all do. I think once you visit Japan, you very quickly want to become an ambassador for Japan, right? You want people to experience all of these amazing things that you've done or eaten, or say, hey, it's okay to try takoyaki. Don't ask that it's octopus. Like, try it. I promise that you'll like it. And if you don't, we'll eat it. Don't worry. Like, nothing is going to go to waste here. But I think some of the most enjoyable food that we had was on that street and being like, hey, it's just a few hundred yen, which is, $7, whatever it is. It's like walking around Epcot and trying little things at a food and wine festival, but in a much different, much more authentic kind of way. And it's, I think that evening was one of the most fun, delicious, probably fattening nights
and
that
Lou,
we had.
I have to tell you one thing about witness your reaction. The one of the things that I cannot forget was to see your reaction. The group reaction, enjoying different items of the McDonald's in Kyoto night. It was everybody was, and actually after having an amazing dinner, it was like, for dessert we're going to McDonald's to try to find different items.
And
it
Pontocho
so
Alley. Oh, there was just beautiful. I mean, just quintessential moment, right? In Pontocho, is it Pontocho Alley? I don't know how to pronounce it. Pontocho Alley, something like that. Where it's just like this tiny little street, and it's beautiful. And Nicholas and I, all we could think about is, now how do we get to the McDonald's after?
It's not the McDonald's. It was the U.S. Embassy in Japan.
It was the payoff. It was so worth it. It was.
Oh my gosh!
Love it.
It was so worth it. I've never seen anyone so serious. It was almost like a religious experience, like watching Nicholas eat whatever he was eating at that McDonald's.
My gosh.
He was, I wish I had a picture. Maybe I do have a picture. He was just in prayer with this burger in his hand. And I'm just sitting there with my grimace shake, enjoying every moment of it.
Oh my gosh. It was so late that night, and it was like after dinner, and I was like, dinner was good, but I need a little bit more. And the after 5 menu had this 4-patty burger, and I was like, I was in heaven. That's all I needed. And then we got back and I passed out. But that was one of the most magical moments of the whole trip. One
of my biggest regrets of the trip is not having gone back to another McDonald's while we were in Japan, because there were so many things on that menu that I wanted to try.
We made sure that we found the one at the airport, so that was actually our last meal. McDonald's at the airport.
Yeah, so I had to go back here. Get the teriyaki burger with the egg on it and the lemon pepper sauce.
See, that's what's so cool is you go back and you visit all the American embassies across the world when you're traveling, and you see all the interesting items that they serve up in their local cuisine. So I think it's actually, part of the traveling experience, right?
Yeah, we can do, and I'm sure we'll talk about the importance and the elegance and the beauty
the temple
of 7-Eleven, because it's a real thing.
The temple,
the convenience store, the convenience store culture in Japan.
I tell 7-Eleven every day.
But wait, I want to take a pause because if we're talking about temples, and again, I'm like, it's starting to all sort of flood back in terms of chronology. We're talking about temples, and we saw a lot of different temples and shrines, which are two different things, but a lot of important religious landmarks and beautiful places. But Becky, this year, our trip, and Nicole and Sean too, our trip was different than the one we did in 2019. There were things that were similar from that. There were things that were taken off for one reason or another, and things that were added. And Becky, you and I always talk about, for Adventures by Disney, it's not just the places you go. It's not just the curated experiences. It's not just the access to be able to do things that you could not necessarily do otherwise. Whether it's getting in early, staying late, them opening a place up just for us, having a restaurant all to ourselves. This year, if I had to think about that moment, right, which is a moment that I've had on other Adventures by Disney, it's going into the family's home in China and being taught arts and crafts by the grandmother whose granddaughter came in from school and sat right next to us in the kitchen doing her homework. It's going to the Vatican after hours and being in the Sistine, I still get chills, being in the Sistine Chapel, just 28 of us. For this trip, it was going to Thai Madeira, which you've probably never heard of, and none of us did either. We go to, our our bus driver parks, and we walk a few blocks into this very quiet, almost seemingly abandoned temple complex. And as we walk into one of the buildings, one of the I'm assuming, and forgive me if I'm assuming one of the monks is there, and instead of directing us into where we were going to eat lunch, he directs us around the other way. And on this somewhat beautifully misty, almost raining kind of day in Kyoto, we walk through this garden, this incredibly manicured and landscaped garden. Our Adventures by Disney guides are taking photos of us there. We're taking photos of each other. Just this, you want to talk about serene, peaceful, very sort of calming moment. And then we walk upstairs and we are presented, we are gifted with this beautiful, traditional, simple, elegant, fantastically delicious, and I'm looking at a picture of myself, and it's one of those stupid smiles that I get on my face when I'm really, really, really happy. I was like, this is it, man. Like, this is the moment. This is, to me, what this Adventures by Disney was all about. It's having this experience that you cannot buy, right? You couldn't arrange for this ourselves. It's a huge surprise. It's authentic. It's traditional. I won't even get to the puppy because that was just like icing on the little.
Yuki.
Yes.
You guys remember the puppy's name? Like, that's what I mean. And I was
The baby birds.
I was watching and listening as much as I could to everybody else, and even those folks who maybe were like, "Oh, I don't know about the food in Japan." Everybody was smiling. Everybody was happy. Kenneth was weeping. I saw like he was practically in tears.
I was so nervous for Kenneth. I was so nervous for Kenneth when they said it was an entire vegan. I was like, oh no, Ken. I'm sitting there right
now. Maybe I can eat the rice.
We have a picture of his concerned face too, and he.
It was the best.
It was delicious. It was. To me, it was my second.
For me, it was the best one. For me, the best. And I also want that don't like the idea of eating vegan food, but it was the best food experience in the whole trip.
And that's a really good point to bring up now, is that a lot of people are kind of afraid of these types of adventures because they're afraid they're not going to have anything to eat. And I remember when we did our pre-con call, there were at least 6 people like, oh, I don't know. Is there going to be chicken at least? Is there going to... And sitting down at those meals, there's nothing, there's some things that, it's a little bit out of my comfort zone as a person that might be a slightly picky eater, maybe, kind of, sort of.
I love sitting next to Becky at dinner.
Yeah, because actually you and Nicholas ate most of everything that I was like, I don't know about this.
Yes.
That's actually awesome. But that's
always sit next to Becky when you go on a trip because she'll just slide her food over to you.
But no one's going to go hungry on any adventure. And even at that lunch, which was so unexpected and vegetarian. But I think for many of us, that was the best meal of the trip besides McDonald's and 7-Eleven. But it's amazing that they always have everybody in mind, that there's always going to be something at these meals that you're not going to, you're never going to go hungry for sure. But like you said, Lou, what I loved so much about that experience was that walk at the beginning through a traditional Japanese garden. And you could breathe through that moment. And even though we were all together, it felt like we were alone and we were our own entities within being surrounded by nature. And from the baby birds, the moment you walked in, there's this mother bird that's flying in over your head and almost hitting your head to feed the baby birds. And then snaking through that garden and getting our picture there. And it was exactly what I had hoped for an experience in Japan.
Oh, and by the way, the person who greeted us at the beginning, I was up with Tomomi when that person greeted us, and she told me that this is a family that was the caretaker of that temple, and he was the son in the family, and it was his garden. He's the caretaker of the garden, and he wanted us to see his garden, and he directed us to walk through there. And then the other really special thing about that experience was that we walked through their living quarters. The family that takes care of the temple invited us into their living quarters for lunch, and we got to see how they live. And they had a large upstairs room that could accommodate all of us. But it was a really, really special, intimate experience. And Tomomi told me that the son especially is a huge Disney fan, and all of the family are big Disney Parks fans. And so they were honored to be able to host a Disney Adventures by Disney trip. And that whole thing just, sort of solidified a sense of community with someone on the other side of the world, that we have this common thing that we all love together. And they just were so hospitable to us in that. And I think the fact that they were big Disney fans made it even more special.
Well, they were, like you said, they were hospitable, they were proud. And I love the fact, again, and I keep going to this because I want to be really clear. The level, this was not like a performative meal. Like, this was very authentic in terms of where, because of where we're, Lisa, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, for me, this was like the first time and probably like the epitome of me, like, sitting in a place and being like, yeah, this is why I booked an ABD. Like, this is the reason why, like, this sort of access, this sort of like thing that I never in a million years would have stumbled on by myself is like the exact reason why I chose to do this trip in this way. And even like, so like the way the stage was set leading up to it, like we took the bus to the area, but then we walked together, like sort of at our own paces up this beautiful pathway of different types of homes. And each home had, the way they take an empty can and they'll turn it into a lantern and hang it outside, and the, flowers everywhere, and how much pride is taken in each like front step. But, as we're walking up to this path to this extraordinary like gate that like led us into where the temple itself was, I have in my notes, I don't know if I'm exactly right, but I think they said that the man and his family and his adorable dog Yuki, who served us the meal, he was the son of the priest who was the 52nd generation. He was the 52nd generation priest of that area. And I think I have in my notes too, like that the structures there, the pagodas and stuff were from like around 700 AD that we were seeing there. I think they were some of the longest standing wooden structures in the area. And that the other gentleman was standing at the front gate, and we didn't realize until afterwards that I guess when you've kind of got into the area where the gardens and the meal were going to be, you could kind of go one of two different ways, and we weren't sure which way we were going. And there was a gentleman kind of guiding us toward one of the garden entries. And I think none of us realized at the time, but like the other entry would have gotten us to the same place much, much more quickly. But instead they had us walk through this beautifully kept, garden area that I believe was maintained and designed by the gentleman who served us the meal. Like, he was the groundskeeper as well for the area. And to sit and have that meal that, vegan or not, like, I love a good vegan meal, but I know some of us are partial to meat, but like to have a meal that was obviously prepared with so much love. In a space with so much history, being tended to by these people who welcomed us into their space again, like with so much gratitude and so much graciousness. It's the moment, I think, for a lot of us that like we just come back to when we think back to like the epitome of the trip and why we chose an ABD and like what the trip was to us, and all the reasons that we're talking about, are exactly why. And like that picture of the gentleman and his wife who was expecting and their little dog, like waving us goodbye as we left, as the little baby birds were, feeding overhead, is just such a like perfect sum up picture of the trip for me.
And that's what I mean. Like, it almost seemed too perfect. Like, all right, cue the dog, cue the mom, like, it was perfect in every sense of the word.
She's pregnant with the son. She knew it was a boy who's going to be the next caretaker. Also, it's like he's already in line. It was like the perfect little Disney story.
Yeah, it was. And there's a couple of quick things I want to take away from that too. Lisa, you talked about sort of going at your own pace to get there. The other thing about Adventures by Disney, which I love, is that we do all go at our own pace, and we all have different interests along the way as we're going from point A to point B. Sometimes some of us want to stop and take a photo, a video. Some of us want to stop and grab a snack on the way to dinner. Some of us want to go at a faster pace. Maybe somebody has mobility issues. No one gets left behind, right? There's always going to be an Adventures by Disney guide at the front of the group and at the back of the group. And no matter how fast or slow you are never left alone. And I had that experience the last time we were in Japan, right? Becky, remember, I was at a store, and I quickly tell the story to sort of illustrate a point. I was at a store I was bringing back nation gifts, actually, and they take so much care in not just, selling you the item, but wrapping every item individually. I'm like, come on, man, chop, chop. I got to go. I'm going to miss the bus. The guide stayed behind so that everybody else didn't have to wait for the bus. He waited for me, and then he and I took a cab back together. And I was like, that's amazing. Even walking, right? No matter how slow you are or what you're doing, they'll stay with you. They'll walk with you, and they'll allow you to take in the moment however you want without feeling rushed or without feeling like you're waiting on somebody else. Before we move, go ahead.
Unless it's a train, unless it's a bullet train.
Unless it's a train, right?
That's the one thing that, again, you and I talked about a lot. I would never, I escort groups for a living. I would never take this on by myself for the fear of getting 33 people on a train in 30 seconds.
With also so many distractions, right? There's food stalls, there's 7-Elevens or McDonald's. Like, it is like herding like
vending
cats,
machines that I am in love with. Every time I turn around, it says lychee water there. No, it's not. Okay. But yes, I mean, I think that's what I appreciate about it too, is that if you try to do this on your own, you're not familiar with the territory, you're not familiar with the terrain. Sure, a lot of people could pull it off, but at least you have people who are guiding you through those scenarios. Because as Americans, we look at that, go, oh yeah, the train's fine. It's going to take 20 minutes before it goes. No, you get on that train or it's gone.
And I want to make one other quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And one of the things too, Lou, I wanted to point out while you were talking about you can do it at your own pace, and it's very flexible while at the same time keeping you on pace. One of the things that sort of struck me was when, I forget which day it was, but Fisher and I were pretty tired that after a really long day in the heat, going through temples and shrines and a lot of walking. And the next morning was going to be an early morning, and we just didn't think we wanted to do that. And so I talked to Ralph, and I said, hey, Ralph, is it okay if we just sit this next morning out? And that was perfectly fine. So I think a lot of people look at these itineraries and think, wow, this is just a go, 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 go trip, and you're going to be exhausted. And you can be exhausted if you want to go, 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 and go. But the thing I would point out too is they're also very flexible. Almost every activity is really optional. And if you don't feel like you can go, go, go that day, don't, just take a little downtime like we did in the hotel that morning. And then we met up with everybody for the next activity, and it was amazing.
And that's a great point, Kenneth, because I know like Carlos and Jason, you guys are there with your wives, and there were some days you wanted to do something different or on a different schedule. And you never, talk about how you never sort of felt pressure to stay with the group or that you were going to be missing something.
Yeah.
You did
we
have
had to get our gyoza. We had to get our gyoza fix in Kyoto the last night there. When you guys went to Osaka, we decided we were going to go one last chance to get to that place we couldn't get to. And we had it, and it was delicious. And I think that speaks volumes to not just the flexibility of the trip, but also to the comfort level that how quickly, the four of us were comfortable just kind of venturing out on our own and exploring and finding new things. That was really what I was looking forward to. And the biggest thing I wanted to get out of this Adventures by Disney trip was to kind of go to this place that was a little kind of scary to go to on my own. Right. I mean, cause the language and the culture but to have my hand held and to be introduced to these places and to gain that comfort level. I just never expected to gain it so quickly. But Kenneth was right. I mean, if you felt like you needed a break or felt like you needed to kind of step away from an activity or something, no problem.
No pressure on that.
It was not a problem at all. I missed having the ice cream,
right,
ice cream bread
thing,
apparently, but
and you always had connection. So we had a group WhatsApp app chat. So if you did get lost or if you needed more information, the guides were always available via chat as well. So you could chat in the group or you could chat personally with them. So you could explore on your own, you could have time on your own, but you never really felt alone because there was always a connected person that could help you through anything that you needed.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to just quickly talk about too is this idea of traveling with, we talk about traveling overseas to places that might be scary, intimidating. There's also the idea of traveling with the group, right? A group of, in some cases, strangers. Like, you have something in common because when we do these, as WDW Radio groups, it's just us, right? It's that you have something in common, right? You've got Disney, you've got the show, you've got me and Becky sort of in common, but you are taking a bit of a leap of faith. And I speak for myself. I know Becky is too. We're very hyper aware of that. Like, you are trusting us to not just come on the Adventures by Disney, but trusting me to come on this group trip. If anybody wants to sort of just touch on that, whether Nicole and Sean, you've done this 73 times, or those of you who are doing a group trip for the first time, talk about the idea of going as a group, knowing people there, not knowing people there. Was that exciting for you? Was that scary for you? Was there a comfort level in that for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons we continue to do these trips. We love this group of folks. Like you said, that you kind of start out with that commonality, but when we started adventure number 1, we didn't know anybody, including you and Becky in person. So it's been amazing and awesome to be able to do these different adventures and travel with this group. And we've made some friends on every trip. We've made friends, and some continue. And we are always looking forward to continuing trips with anybody that's been on the with this group before. It's just awesome. One of the guides, we didn't have him this time, but on a previous adventure, it's not a group trip, it's a family. And it really is everybody in that comes on these trips, our family. And I just love that feeling. And that's why we do it. It's awesome to be able to go off on your own and do things. But we made so many friends and family that on this trip that we didn't know before, and hope that we can continue those relationships. And it's great to experience, especially something as special as Japan, with folks that are like family.
And I'm sorry, I was saying Becky too, and I'd love to hear from all you guys too. We've had on this trip, and Lisa can even talk to this. We have people who come solo, right? You come solo, but you're never alone. And I'm always amazed, Becky. We said this on the very first Adventures by Disney that we did. I looked at you and I'm like, we could obviously never do another ABD again. You're like, why? I'm like, because we caught lightning in a bottle. Like, everybody is getting along. Everybody's just having fun. Everybody's making friends. It happens every time. Like on this trip, look, you guys, Sean and Nicole, we were walking down the streets of Dotonbori in Osaka, and I would just run over and I'd grab a skewer, I'd grab food, I'd grab gyoza, and we're all just trying each other's food. I'm like, Mary, take a bite of my skewer. It doesn't matter. Like, we're all family here. And it just clicks so fast. And like, it just, from my perspective, not as somebody who's going on the trip, but to watch all of that happen, like it does, it warms my heart so much. So, I want to hear from the rest of you about what we were just talking about, and then anybody wants to chime in on that aspect as well.
So I have so many things to say to speak to that, but for starters, like, you just attract good people. Like in all of the things that you do, whether it's like your business stuff or your ABD stuff or whatever it is. So like, I always kind of know, like, I always have some security that like, it's a good, solid group of people who are going to be along for the ride. On this trip, I did come solo, and I actually roomed with a girl who was great, who I only knew because she was on the river cruise, the Christmas market river cruise with us a couple of years ago, and we had an amazing time together. I also, a lot of you are my closest friends in the world, so I certainly wasn't alone on the trip. But at the same time, like, you're as with or as alone as you want to be. So if you need to take a step back and like take a breather, which I think we all kind of did at one time or another during the trip, because it's a lot. Like you can do that. You can take a step back, but like you also have the comfort of knowing that this wonderful group of supportive, incredible people who are sharing this experience with you are going to be right there when you're ready to pop back in again. And I think like as you were talking just now, the one experience that jumped out at me, which, you know, we haven't mentioned and we've laughed about a lot, is the night that we all did karaoke.
That's exactly what I was leading to.
Well, but I'm speaking to it not because of the karaoke itself, but because of what we did that night and how much we surprised the guides, because they had secured 2 rooms for us. There were 2 good sized like karaoke room spaces for us the night that we had this like silly karaoke event planned, you know, in the hotel that we were staying in after hours. And we told them under no uncertain terms that we were like, well, do we have to split up? Can't we all just be in one big room together? And so instead of using both of the spaces that had been secured for us for like karaoke night, we all piled into one room together and had a blast.
Oh, yeah.
Some of us more than others. I think that speaks to it, right? Like, you know, and some people skipped it and some people popped in for a little while and then left. And some people like had a great time until the curtains closed for the night. But like the fact that like this group of people who had been kind of effectively stuck together up until this point for the entirety of the trip, like shunned the idea of being split into 2 rooms when it was an option to all pile into one, like just speaks volumes about like the people that we were with and how well we were all getting along together. And just like the sort of like happy nature of like of how the group meshed together and how much fun we had. And I certainly like I came in to this trip with some of my closest friends in the world, and I left with like a good sized list of new friends that I even now, like just having gotten home a week ago, am regularly in contact.
And if you pay attention,
having just come home.
Ralph even had commented.
If you pay attention, probably
I'm sorry,
the best pictures of the whole trip are from that night from the karaoke. They're amazing.
I disagree, however.
I agree, Carlos. I agree with you 100%, Carlos.
Yeah, it was interesting that the guides, Lou, I think this is what you were about to say. The guides commented on how cohesive our group was and how much we liked each other. And you know, one of the things Ralph said stuck with me. He said, one of the things we as tour guides say to ourselves is, we can't control the weather and who gets off the plane, but this is the favorite group of any group we've ever had. And they did all these other little special things for us. And I feel like this group just added a completely new dimension to the trip over and above where we were and all the amazing things we were seeing and doing. You know, just little things like when Ralph started playing Africa on the bus, and it was his signal that we were going to a restroom because the toilets were all made by Toto. And it was just little things like that I don't think, you know, had I gone on this trip by myself or even with my family, we would not have had this level of fun without the group.
That song will never be the same to me anymore.
It was amazing.
Yes.
No, it's
Potty
forever
break
the potty
song.
song now. It's the potty break song.
Yeah.
Do. I can't even hear it and not have to go.
And I have called an electrician to put an outlet in my toilet.
I was wondering who the first would be.
I
sent him to my house
to do that. We have an order in.
So explain for those who are wondering why do they keep talking about toilets so much. Listen, we talked about this the first time we went. It's a thing. You want to come home like with a souvenir of a toilet.
Yeah, please.
Kenneth, maybe you could explain it better than I probably should.
Well, have you ever watched Star Trek and seen Captain Kirk's chair and just wished that you had a chair with controls on it? And well, Japanese toilets are for you because that's what you feel like. You feel like you go in the bathroom that you get to sit in Captain Kirk's chair, and there are all these controls at your disposal, everything from heat to water to, you know, it's like
music,
an amazing.
There was a couple of them had white noise. That's true.
Yeah, they do have white noise.
What's surprising though is I kind of expected it in the hotels and the fancier places. I did not expect it in every public
train
restroom we
station
went into,
restrooms.
or a little like hole in the wall ramen place bathroom that you go and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go in here. Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this. And you go in like, oh, greetings, here we are to help you. I'm like, I had to group. I use Google Translate. I'm probably not the only one who used Google Translate to look at the controls. And I kind of had it figured out by the end. Every once in a while, you got introduced to a new. Oh, it's this. This is a new feature, and that's how I discovered the white noise in the one in this little diner in.
Lou,
in
why are you in the bathroom for 45 minutes? I just keep hitting buttons.
Yeah, right. I was waiting for Toto for it to start playing at some point.
Of all the bathrooms I've encountered, there was only one that did not have all the crazy features. And it was on the island with the tour gate. The name is escaping me.
Miyajima, yeah.
But it was a very traditional Japanese toilet.
Oh, but the ones on Miyajima and also in Hiroshima, they had the little backyard bubbler thing going with you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Where they have
I literally have no idea. And
toilets
I'm
there.
Bubbler.
Okay, guys. I don't know how the women's bathrooms were, but in the men's bathroom,
This is a G-rated show. Whatever you're going to say next.
Yes, it had the fancy toilet, and then when you flushed, I kid you not, there was a water feature. There was when you flushed above the tank part. There's a little bubbler. There's like a little stream of water that comes up. And that's where you wash your hands.
You're supposed to
wash your hands there.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Exactly what you're talking about.
I was so confused and mystified and also anxious the first time I encountered this because I'm thinking to myself, I got to wash my hands fast now because what happens when it stops? I'm going to have to flush again. And then my hands are dirty
Where is
again.
this water coming from?
Well, I didn't. I wasn't drinking
You
it.
didn't question
So-
it.
It's not a bottle refill station.
But you just washed your hands in it.
No,
I did wash
it
my
was
hands, yeah.
It was clean water that was then being like put back into the toilet.
That's what I
and then that
assumed.
would
Right,
be
it was
flushed
clean
again.
water putting back
that's
in
what I
the
assumed
bowl.
was kind of clean water.
And somebody said hole in the wall because it's not. And Nicole and Troy, I saw you had your hand up, so you can touch on this too. Becky, you guys know. You say hole in the wall. In some places in Asia, it's a hole in the ground, so it's a very different than
And in
the type
Japan.
of toilets.
No,
Yeah.
there was
some of
one.
them
The one I
say
used.
Western
In the
toilet, and others
Yeah.
say Eastern toilet, and you have to make sure to pick the right stall.
The guy in the Western toilet was taking way too long. It was probably you, Dad, but I used an Eastern toilet, and it was an experience to say the least.
Sean and Nicole.
Yeah, it's
We could do an entire hour on toilets, obviously.
You know,
the entire group just came alive when it was talking about
it's like Tony Stark's toilet. Especially the one in Shangri-La with all the automatic stuff. I was expecting it to talk to me.
Yeah.
You know.
No, okay, but we the best is Ken's story, and I think this was in the hotel in Takayama because in Takayama the bathroom, the toilet, would do its thing as of course, and be prepared for you, but the light would come on. Yeah, the light would come on in the bathroom when you entered, which in the middle of the night you don't necessarily want to have happen. So he was thinking, oh, I know what I'll do to keep this light from coming on. I will take the little card key out of the door. They have the little card key things that allow the electric in the room to happen. It's like an energy efficiency thing, right? Like cruise ships have. A lot of cruise ships have those. And he's like, I'll short circuit the system. I'll just take the card key out, and then the bathroom light won't come on when I go in there. Not only did I think the bathroom light still came on.
Yeah, the bathroom light still came on.
But then when he went back, he had to put the card key back in, and then all the lights in the room came on in the middle of the night. And then he had to search for the little iPad device. Was the only way to control the lights in the room. Yeah. And I'm sorry to tell your story, but it's such a good story.
Yeah, it was a whole ordeal. It was like 10 minutes of bright light on Fisher. He was not happy with me.
But this is just, it's just like these little things, these little experiences that you have. It was just kind of throughout the whole trip. It was like, it was great.
So I just want to quickly say, I'm looking at a photo from our hotel restroom, our hotel water closet, and the controls there. I just counted twice. I'm like, I'm making a mistake. There are 21 buttons on the toilet machine. Thank God for Google Translate, because I would have just been hitting stuff. But yeah, it's a thing. And
I just
want
sat
one
on one and cycled all the buttons.
Yeah.
You need to try them all.
And he showed us Kanji character for maximum
Large
flush.
flush. Yeah, large flush.
Yeah,
Right.
big flush. Yeah, that was a good.
But you know one thing.
little
But you know,
one to know.
but you know one thing from all
All right,
those
we need to
little
move on
all
from
those little things that we have
Do we,
we have
though? I
experienced
mean,
there. There's
really?
one thing that I really miss is whenever you go to any store, to the 7-Eleven or to the McDonald's or where, any store that you have to use the credit card. When you use the credit card, then in the cashier machine, it has that little voice that say, "Cardo." It is. I miss that a lot.
You know what I miss?
Isn't it funny, the little
swarm?
things that we miss?
I miss
Sorry?
the swarm of all of you
Oh, yeah.
anytime that you saw a gotcha machine. And everybody, what coins do you have? I need that one. I only need 2 more. What do you got? Where can we get change? And just watching everybody just swarm the gotcha machines and then sharing their.
I loved feeling like the dad because I still have it on my desk. I have like my little bag of like yen, and I always want to I don't want anybody to feel left out. Like if you didn't happen to have like some coin yen, so I wanted to like hand out, like I was like, and I loved seeing everybody get so excited because we would be walking to a destination. That's what I mean. Like we would stop along the way because on every corner, sometimes multiple, there's like banks of gotcha machines. They're just basically, like a kid, like the little, you put a quarter in vending machine, but there are ones, I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands of different things. It could be everything from Baymax characters to Japanese lanterns to little plates to Pokemon to Harry Potter or whatever it is. And they're everywhere. And it's this wonderful little small investment gamified reward thing that you get. And I mean, I still have 2 of them like sitting on my desk. And it's just such a fun little, again, they're just doing everything better there. Why do we not have gotcha machines on every corner in America?
I agree.
But
And I need to do some, go
the-
back and do some more.
One of the cool things about that though is how many of us would really have embraced that if the guides wouldn't have said, "Hey, we're going to do this activity on the last night. Everybody bring a gotcha, something that you get from one of these gotcha machines." And we're all like, "Yeah, what is this?" And then it became this hunt. Like everywhere we went, people were looking and trying to figure out which one they were going to bring.
Yeah.
And that activity was so much fun on the last night. So much fun.
It was.
Great.
I agree.
It's a great way of
touched on
again,
fever.
things that they do that you wouldn't expect. I mean, when you go there, you're not going to say, "Hey, I'm going to take 10,000 yen to play gotcha machines," but then you get to interact with something that you normally wouldn't have. And I don't think I would have done that unless we had that activity. So that's really cool.
All right, we can spend a lot of time on a lot of these like little things that we love, but I do want to get to what is my favorite. It was my favorite stop the first time we went. It was the stop I was looking most forward to this time, and it still remains. And if I had to, I will eventually possibly move in Japan. That's going to conclude part 1 of our recap and review of our Adventures by Disney journey through Japan. Please tune in next week for part 2. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've ever been to Japan, what do you think of our review so far? Which of the locations might interest you to go and visit most? Again, come be part of the community and conversation over in the Clubhouse at wdwradio.com/clubhouse. And tune in next week for part 2. But as I promised, I also want to take a moment to share some very exciting news, because while one trip comes to an end, we have already been looking to the future, and I am so excited to finally announce, we've talked a little bit about it on some of the live shows, but this is our next WDW Radio Family Adventures by Disney trip, and this one is again truly bucket list worthy, because in February 2027, we're heading to Egypt on an unforgettable 10-day journey through ancient history, breathtaking landmarks, and one-of-a-kind Disney guided experiences. We're going to explore the Great Pyramids of Giza. We're going to cruise down the Nile in luxury, visit the temples of Luxor and Karnak, and stand, probably in awe, before the Valley of the Kings and the tomb of Tutankhamun. We're even going to take time to relax on the shores of the Red Sea in Sharm el-Sheikh. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to walk in the footsteps of the pharaohs with the peace of mind, the service, and the magic that only Adventures by Disney can provide, and together, as part of our exclusive It's WDW Radio group and community and family members only, which, as I hope you hear so far, and you'll definitely hear again next week, really makes these trips extra special. You can find out all the details, including pricing and itinerary, by going to www.radio.com/Egypt27. But do not wait too long. Our past trips have sold out very quickly. Space is extremely limited. And because I've already shared this with members of the WDW Radio Nation, which gets early access to event announcements like these, and past group ABD attendees, we are already more than 60% sold out. So it is going fast. I cannot wait to explore and enjoy Egypt with you. This has been something I've wanted to do since I was a little kid. Now is the time. Now really is the best time, and I hope that we can do it together. Again, to find out more, to reserve your spot, visit www.radio.com/Egypt27. It's time for this week's Disney Trivia Challenge, where you can test your knowledge and see how well you know the magic, memories, and hidden treasures of Disney. And if you think you know the answer, you can enter for a chance to win a Disney prize package. This week's trivia contest is brought to you by the Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin Food and Wine Classic. It is my favorite foodie event of the year. I'm not sure if you can hear the smile on my face. It's happening November 15th and 16th, right in the heart of Walt Disney World. It is an incredible night of world-class food, drinks, live music, and Disney magic under the stars. And your ticket includes unlimited food and beverages with dishes from award-winning chefs, the incredible restaurants at the Swan and Dolphin, wine, beer, creative cocktails from around the world, all along the beautiful causeway between the Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin resorts. There's live music. It is an incredible, incredible weekend. It really is one of the highlights of my year. And if you love Disney and food and having a great time with friends and family, I promise you are going to love it too. I'd love for you to join me on the causeway this year. Tickets are on sale now, and you can get all the details, including about signing up for some of the different seminars they have, over at Swan Dolphin Food and Wine Classic. And I hope to see you there. And before we get to this week's trivia question, let's go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So last week we were celebrating the Disneyland 70th anniversary, and the question was to tell me what were the very first Disneyland e-ticket attractions, right? So if you remember, before you had sort of a pass that got you into all the attractions, you actually bought a little coupon book, and the A-tickets were some of the simpler attractions. The E-tickets were the big ones. And the term e-ticket was introduced in 1959, 4 years after the park opened, to denote Disney's most thrilling and innovative attractions. And the three that were the first e-ticket attractions were the Matterhorn bobsleds, the submarine voyage, and the Disneyland Alweg monorail system. So it was the world's first tubular steel roller coaster and the first attraction to be built outside of the park's original berm, the simulated underwater adventure inspired by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and the first daily operating monorail system in the Western Hemisphere was an e-ticket attraction. And I love that they are all still operating in some form or fashion today. Anyway, I took all the correct entries, randomly selected one, and last week you were playing for a WDW Radio prize package that includes the keychain, stickers, a pin, and a mystery prize. And last week's winner, randomly selected, is Melissa Sheave. So Melissa, congratulations. I'll get your prize package out to you right away. And if you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So I love Japan, obviously, and the Japan Pavilion, obviously, and actually I love it so much, how much that our meet of the month is going to be there on Saturday, January 21st. Check out the events page over on WDWRadio.com or on Facebook to find out more and RSVP. I'd love to see you there. And of course, I love the food in the Japan Pavilion, including but not limited to Shikisai, which is a Japanese izakaya or gastro pub. But that location didn't open until August of 2023. In fact, Shikisai is the third restaurant in that second floor front part of the Japan Pavilion building. I'm not talking about Teppen Edo, which is in the back on the second floor, but Shikisai actually replaced Tokyo Dining, but that wasn't the very first restaurant that was there. What was the name of the original restaurant that occupied that space when Epcot and this pavilion opened in 1982? What was the name of the original restaurant that is currently occupied by Shikisai that occupied the space in October 1982. You have until Sunday, June 15th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern to go to WDW Radio.com, click on the podcast there. If you get it right, you'll be entered for a chance to win, again, the prize package that includes the keychain, stickers, pin, and a mystery prize that I brought back for you from Japan. So good luck, and arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I appreciate you sharing this adventure with us and for being part of our WDW Radio family. I am truly grateful to you and for your time and your love and your friendship and support, because remember, you are not a fan, you are a friend, whether we have met yet or not. A couple of quick reminders again. Remember, whether you are dreaming of your next Disney trip or building your dream as a creator, solopreneur, or entrepreneur, or if you're looking for a speaker for your event or conference, please visit LouMongello.com and find out more also about my Momentum Weekend workshop this October. It is a hands-on, one-room, 50-person, 4-day event filled with real-world strategies and workshops to start, grow, and monetize your business or brand. Super early bird pricing ends soon, and we are also more than 60% sold out. And if you have any questions, if Momentum is right for you, please feel free to reach out and email me, lou@wdwradio.com. And whether you are coming to Momentum or you're coming to Egypt, you're booking your own adventure, please go and visit my friends over at mousefantravel.com. For more than 18 years, I've relied on them, not just for my own personal and family vacations, but it's who I use because it's who I trust, which is why I recommend them to you. They offer personalized, stress-free planning at no cost to you. You can get a free quote over at mousefantravel.com. And remember, just because the show is over, it does not mean that the fun has to end. Come join the conversation over in the Clubhouse at wdwradio.com/clubhouse. If you want to share a question, a comment, or just a hello from the parks, call the WDW Radio voicemail at 407-900-9391. That's 407-900-WDW1. If you want to just say hello next time you're visiting from the parks, please connect with me and chat with me on social. I am at Lou Mongello. And please join me every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, for WDW Radio Live on Facebook and YouTube. And as much as I love connecting with you online, I still believe that nothing beats a handshake and a hug. Our next Meet of the Month in Walt Disney World is going to be Saturday, June 21st, in the Japan Pavilion in Epcot. But if you visit the events page over at wdwradio.com or at facebook.com/WDW Radio, you can find out about upcoming meetups, group events, on-the-road events, cruises, and much more. And to make sure you don't miss a thing, sign up for my free weekly email newsletter. There's no algorithms, there's nothing to check. It's just a little bit of Disney magic delivered from me to you, to your inbox every week. You can sign up at wdwradio.com/newsletter. And if you enjoy this week's podcast, and I hope that you do, if you don't, please tell me why. But if you do, please help the show by spreading the word, sharing a link to this or your favorite episode. Take a couple seconds to rate and review the show over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And finally, most importantly, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so grateful to and for you every single day. Please remember to be kind, to choose the good, be the good, set an example, have a great day and even better tomorrow. So until next time, arigato, see ya.